Hi, my name is Ipek Kaynar Rohloff. I'm a visiting professor at the Mount Holyoke College in the United States. Sorry that I can't be there today, but I really look forward to receiving your follow-up questions and comments. Please feel free to email me after the presentation. Today I'm going to discuss how we read narratives within the geometric order of museum spaces. The goal of this study is to identify design properties that will shape our encounters with the narratives. And I try to do this by looking at the effect of local visual cues on visitors' spatial behavior in museums. And this is to take the research looking at the effect of spatial network on behavior to the next step, looking beyond the effect of network relationships, but looking at the visual cues released in local connections and room geometries. The agenda of my discussion is, after giving a brief overview, I'm going to introduce the case studies I use for this study. In these case studies, I'm going to talk about the comparisons I made among spatial layouts, exhibitions, and visitor behavior. And then I'm going to launch a discussion on how narratives are read within the effects of the layout. And then the discussion will come to the conclusions. The research questions I particularly look at are how exhibition narratives are constructed in museum morphologies, how visitors are guided by design properties, how narratives are read within the effects of design on visitors' explorations. The contribution of my study is the identification of design properties determining the visitors' encounters with narratives. I used 3 case studies for this study. The first one is Yale Center for British Art in New Haven, Connecticut. The second one is Museum of Modern Art in New York. And the third one is High Museum of Art in Atlanta. These 3 museums, in fact their 4th floor layouts, are comparable to each other because they have similar atria and gallery configurations. They also show morphological variations based on the ways in which the rooms are connected to each other and the atria spaces release the visual information. These morphological variations make this comparisons, make the study based on these 3 case studies quite more interesting. The framework of my investigation is to make comparisons around layout properties, exhibition narratives, and visitor spatial behavior. The first part of my investigation is comparisons of spatial network with exhibition narratives. This is to understand how exhibition narratives are laid into the space. In the first case study, Yale Center for British Art, we see that the museum layout is characterized by strict geometry based on a structural grid. Each gallery room is a module of a structural grid. And the gallery rooms are separated from each other by partitions in the middle of the gallery span. That leaves the 2 sides of the partition open for the movement. And the way in which the grid works, the layout provides parallel promenades. And the position of the 2 atria in the longitudinal direction leaves a central space, and that also provides 4 different options, 4 different choices to start the itineraries. In addition to that, largely and generously open gallery atrium spaces provide connections across the space between the galleries that are distant from each other. So that provides visual glimpses of the displays that are placed in opposite promenades. When we look at the exhibition content, this layout presents 16th to 19th century British painting in this floor, and this exhibition content is organized around the subject matter, which is the British portraiture, British landscape. These two groups are organized within the parallel promenades. The pink color represents the British portraiture sequence, and the blue color represents the landscape sequence. The promenades are used to provide implicit chronology parallel to each other, although the earliest works of art start from the upper level the upper part of the diagram and goes towards the bottom part. And when we look at visual integration, we see that the visual information is released through the parallel promenades, but also highest visual integration levels are located in the space extending from the introduction gallery towards the British portraiture. That level emphasizes emergence of British portraiture from the genre of the significant developments presented in the introduction gallery. The lowest integration levels, interestingly, are located at the upper part of this diagram, which is where earliest British portraiture are represented. That places less emphasis, in fact weak emphasis, on this beginning part, historical beginning of the British portraiture. On the other hand, these two promenades are highly emphasized in this layout. So when we look at our second case study, Museum of Modern Art, this layout is organized within the chapter rooms. Each room, the rooms that present each modern movement, and then rooms are connected to each other through axially or staggered located doors and doorways, and that brings us to matrix or room organization. And through these doorways, it's possible to see only few rooms ahead of you. On the other hand, the mid part of this itinerary provides some more options in the itinerary, and this is where, in fact, some of the important turning points of the late modern art is presented. As opposed to the first case study, the atrium space here provides only fewer instances of visual connections. As we see in this diagram, the late modern works of art are placed in this gallery layout in quite implicitly chronological order, starting from post-war prefiguration, going through abstract expressionism, and coming to the 1960s cross currents, leading to postmodernism, minimalism, pop art works of art. And when we look at visual integration, the high levels of integration are located in this cross current gallery, and also the other galleries representing the movements flourishing from cross currents, which is post-minimalism. These levels place greater emphasis on these movements, which shows the highly individualistic and complex works of the movements of the late modern period. On the other hand, the beginning parts of the gallery, which present the post-war movements, post-war styles, the layout provides weaker emphasis on these. They are kind of peripheral to the entire narrative. Our third case study presents some morphological complexity due to the combination of two different wings. The first wing, the older one, is an L shape, and the galleries at the edge present the opportunities for circular movement because of the room within a room organization. On the other hand, the newer wing presents matrix of room organization. So on the other hand, this addition of the new wing created the emphasis on the longitudinal movement from the older gallery towards the newer gallery. When we look at the visual connections, the openings within a room organization area provides continuous access through these galleries, although this movement is still circular. And the off-centered gallery, off-centered atria provides only a few glimpses to the galleries in the perpendicular direction. This layout is used to present the stories of three different genre art. The first one is American modern art. In the diagram, it is represented by pink color. The second one is self-taught art, the works of folk art, works of self-taught artists. The third and fourth ones are, in fact, third one is contemporary art and late modern art. So as we see in the diagram, these groups are placed in separate parts of the layout. And on the other hand, this longitudinal space in the middle connecting the older wing with the newer wing is the place where these sequences of different works of art are kind of coalesce and interact with each other. So in the visual integration, we see that the greatest emphasis is that longitudinal part of the layout, and that provides emphasis on the comparisons among these three works of art. And in fact, this is quite the intention of the curatorial team, to find visual affinities and relationships among the three different genres of work art. On the other hand, visual isolation at the outer edges and also the farther corners of the newer wing kind of isolates those separate works of art from the rest of the layout. That provides more opportunities to read these sequences in focus. The second part of my investigation is about comparing layout properties with visitors' spatial behavior. And the relevant behavioral patterns are for the exhibition viewing and exploration are the movement paths and pauses at exhibits. First, I compared the visibility network with the navigation and movement behavior. So when I did that, I found some interesting results, and as we see, the three museum layouts are characterized with different levels of visibility network, and visitors, in fact, are guided most strongly by the visibility property that is strongest in each layout. This property is visual integration in the Yale Center for British Art, visual connectivity in the Museum of Modern Art, and again the visual connectivity in the the High Museum of Art. So in a way, only in the Yale Center for British Art, global visibility levels guide visitors' movement. In the two other museums, local visibility, seeing a few rooms ahead of you, or seeing neighboring spaces, is the guiding property. When I looked at the effect of visibility network on exhibit viewing behavior, which is presented by pauses at exhibits, I found some interesting results. Except for the YCBA, the first case study, in MoMA and High Museum of Art, visitors prefer to view exhibits in visually isolated locations. I reached to this conclusion by finding direct correlations between visual integration and pauses at exhibits in YCBA, whereas negative and inverse correlations between visual integration and pauses at exhibits. So, as a result of this finding, we can discuss that visitors in YCBA, visitors stop at the places they move through, whereas in the two other museums, MoMA and High Museum of Art, visitors pause at displays more in the visually isolated places, although they move through visually connected galleries more often. So that means in these two museums, the navigation patterns and exhibit viewing patterns are dissociated from each other. People visitors engage with these two different behaviors at different corners. So in order to explain this phenomenon a little further, I looked at the effects of visual cues on these visitors' patterns. First of all, I'm gonna have to tell you that what I mean by visual cues is that visual field properties or visual isobus properties available through local connections and room geometry. And when I looked at the effect of visual cues on navigation, it looks like movement is influenced by visual area and maximum radial properties. That means visitors move through following the deeper vistas and larger areas. This picture quite captures the effect of deeper vistas on visitors' perception. On the other hand, in MoMA, again, larger areas represented by a higher level of isobus areas attract visitors, and in High Museum of Art, again, isobus area and maximum radial, in other words, seeing deeper vistas and larger areas attract people's movement. People move through those spaces as they see deeper vistas and larger areas. Well, when we look at the same visual cues, their effect on the exhibit viewing behavior, we have quite different results. Visitors, in the same way they engage in movement, they prefer exhibit viewing more often when they have larger visible areas and deeper vistas. That means they're engaged in the visual information beyond the confines of the visited galleries, even when they are viewing exhibits. On the other hand, seeing larger areas make negative effect or inverse effect on stopping at exhibits in the two other museums, especially in the High Museum of Art. Visitors seem to prefer contained areas to view exhibits. They are not interested in the visual information beyond the confines of the galleries. So, in order to understand this phenomenon, I looked at more closely to the morphology or design properties, so to speak, of these galleries. So this is captured much more closely when we look at the museum gallery floor plans in scale, and this is a relatively same scale. This is how the museum gallery, the three layouts are seen in the same scale. It shows us that Yale Central British Art consists of much smaller gallery spaces than the two other museums. So then we can discuss that, we can argue that because of the smaller gallery spaces and also because of the way the doorways are located, in Yale Central British Art, visitors pay greater attention to the visual information extending beyond the confines of each gallery. Whereas in MoMA and High Museum of Art, which are characterized by larger galleries, visitors prefer contained spaces to view exhibits. So, the last part of our discussion is based on the investigation of looking at how within this effect of layout, including spatial network and visual cues, how exhibition narratives are read throughout the spatial behavior patterns visitors are engaged. So, if we go back to the exhibit content and the visibility network comparison, so we see that due to the effect of visual integration on both movement and exhibit viewing patterns at the same time, visitors likely read the highlight of the exhibit, which is the British portraiture and the natural scenery painting promenades, and especially the way that British portraiture is emerged from the historic highlighted parts of the history represented in the introduction gallery right here. So this property is somewhat related to the way in which the visual information is released, because the visual information is released at the size of the galleries, so it's possible to be engaged in both movement and exhibit viewing at the same time. So, on the other hand, due to the inverse effect of visual integration, and also on the other hand, the guiding effect of visual connectivity, as we spoke before, these two behaviors are dissociated, and then exhibits presenting the cross currents and emerging styles, which are in the highly integrated parts, were not visitors' focus of attention. Instead, they seem to be paying greater attention to the popular paintings that are not in fact highlighted part of the narrative, but that are in fact placed in the isolated parts of the gallery. In a similar way, due to the inverse effect of visual integration on the movement and exhibit viewing, at the same time the guiding effect of visual connectivity, dialogues among the works of modern, contemporary, and self-taught art, which are at this longitudinal central place, is not visitors' greatest attention. On the other hand, narratives in each section, for example, a development of American modern art in the most isolated part of the layout is more center of attention for visitors. In fact, that's where visitors pay greater focus on seeing and reading exhibits. So this brings us to some conclusions about how different design properties facilitate visitors' various encounters with displays. As characterized by Yale Central Bridge art, museum design with continuous promenades, smaller sized galleries, and more open galleries offering frequent vistas to further areas engage visitors with exhibit viewing and navigation at the same distances. So that one can argue that this creates less focused way of reading, but maybe reading the entire exhibition more on the surface as a visual array. On the other hand, museum design characterized by galleries layouts like MoMA's and High Museum of Art, providing more restricted sequences, less open and larger galleries with fewer vistas, highlights an in-depth presentation of the content, because in such layouts, visitors are motivated to see the interactions in a more close way, and there is increased interactions or intensified interactions with each of the display groups rather than the reading and titling on the surface. So from these findings, we discuss, by looking at the morphological variations of these three museums, we can discuss that these contrasting effects of layouts on visitors' experiences can be explained by differences in gallery geometric order as a result of the spatial vocabularies. In particular, these vocabularies are characterized in the Yale Central Bridge chart by galleries punctuated with openings at the corners of the galleries, as opposed to the MoMA's well-defined chapter rooms, which are connected axially, not at the corners. And also High Museum of Art's galleries within variety of size and configurations create also this difference from the Yale Central Bridge art. These are how I identify the design properties and how they make different effects on visitors' behavior. And this is with the intention of going beyond looking at the spatial network properties, but going deeper into the shape and size, perhaps, properties and how they affect our visitors' perceptions and the way in which they read the visual information. So these are the conclusions I came up with, and I appreciate your further questions and comments. Thank you.